Trump is not making crime legal because he's a felon. Trump is making crime legal because he's a fascist. Oh, the Stephen Miller sparked suspicion after glitch on CNN when he mentioned plenary authority. So what was that? What was that? Because that clip was very weird. He just like glitched. He glitched like a robot. But yeah, here's what I had talked about already. This is an example of what you're referencing. Exclusive. Federal drug prosecutions fall to the lowest level in decades as Trump shifts focus to deportations. While you were muted, he said prosecute Code Pink. Oh my God. Medea, get behind me.
To know, so you're talking about the money funding these Antifa organizations, and somebody brought up Roy Singham, I think it was you, who, by the way, is married to one of the co-founders of Code Pink, this infamous left-wing organization. I'm curious to know the administration.
Who is that? Who is that?
Roy Singham. He's married to.
No, did you say they're here?
No, he's not. A journalist brought him up, but.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seamus, thank you.
Good bring up.
Excellent.
Go ahead.
He's somebody who's been reported on extensively, and I'd love to know what the administration is going to do to actually bring consequences to some of these names you mentioned.
Well, I don't know the name, but I would like to ask Pam to take a look at it. You know, a lot of the best information we find are through you and other people like you. So I'd like you to look at it, Pam.
I do appreciate that he does not know anything. Like, he doesn't know who he wants to prosecute. He doesn't know any of these people. Here's a TikTok explaining it.
Oh, he just came out and said it. Of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority. Stephen?
He knows he up.
Stephen?
He knows what he just said.
Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
It seemed, Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical issue.
So wait, that wasn't a glitch? I thought he was just trying to say the president has plenty of authority. Like, that was actually plenary authority, as in the president has assumed total power over the decision to deploy the National Guard in some states. It is unclear whether Miller paused due to the technical difficulties or stopped himself after realizing the implications of what he's saying. What is plenary authority? The plenary authority, check your ears. Wait, no, he did say plenary authority. They also cut it out of the CNN. Okay. They cut him saying that directly out of the CNN interview. We saw it after the fact. Plenary authority refers to complete, absolute, or unrestricted power over a particular matter, often described as limitless for all practical purposes by the Cornell Legal Information Institute. Anyway, I'm sure the video will explain it.
Plenary authority. Plenary authority. Remember that. That's what he's claiming. At least now we know that his fear response is freeze. And if you're not sure what plenary means, I gotcha. Complete in every respect. Absolute. Unqualified. No, not that type of unqualified. Though in that case, yes. What little SS Miller is claiming here is that Trump has complete unlimited control over the military to do with it what he pleases. No. And by the way, we need to make sure that this ends up in the hands of all the state's attorneys. They need to know for all their legal battles against the White House that someone from the White House and very high up in the administration is arguing plenary authority. And the funny thing is, he immediately realizes he messed up. This whole technical difficulty thing does not make sense. That's not what happened here. Little SS Miller was talking completely uninterrupted, said a word, and then froze. By the way, if you needed any more confirmation about the brain power behind this hate, if the audio had just cut out, he would have had no idea because he was the one talking. If he started getting a different audio issue, maybe like a weird noise or interference, he would have said that, or at least any normal human being would have said, I'm getting a...
Why are people debating over what he said? Trump deployed the National Guard in blue states already, and they disregarded the governor's orders. It's been done in the past, and everyone kept giving up more power to the executive. I don't know where they're fixated on this. It's already happening. Yeah, I do kind of feel like they're reading into it a little bit more, a little bit further than is necessary, because like it already is happening. I guess maybe I was more interested in the fact that he just glitched for some reason. Like, I don't know why he stopped. I also don't know why CNN didn't show that. You know, on Monday afternoon, Donald Trump aide went on CNN's News Central to discuss the president's deployment of national troops to U.S. cities. CNN asked Miller when the Trump administration will abide by a district judge's order blocking the Guard's deployment in Oregon. Well, the administration filed an appeal this morning with the Ninth Circuit, Miller began. I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Then Miller said, under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority, before making an abrupt stop. Miller blinked several times. The anchor Boris Sanchez calling out his name, though he did not respond. Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical issue, Sanchez said, before the show cut to a break, and resumed after with Sanchez saying some wires got crossed. The interview with Miller continued, but neither Sanchez nor Miller brought up plenary authority again. A CNN spokesperson confirmed that there was a technical issue during the interview, though did not specify the details. So I guess, like, for me, either this is a grand conspiracy where, like, CNN is actually covering up the footsteps of the administration, actively revealing the ways in which they're going to enact ultimate authority on this subject, especially as it pertains to the National Guard deployments, like the military being deployed. Or there was actually a technical difficulty, and Stephen Miller was going to say that anyway, and the technical difficulty stopped it from... Yeah, here, because we watched the edited video upload and I didn't see it. Yeah, Stephen Miller said the quiet part out loud. Trump has plenary authority, and then suddenly went silent. The plan wasn't made to be public. Clearly, someone hit the panic button in his earpiece. I can see it. You missed it, Hasan? No. We did that even. We watched the CNN video. We initially watched the re-upload of the interview. I didn't see it, but then again, I was pissing. Did that actually happen? Did they show that? I said, if you remember, when we watched it on stream yesterday, I said, oh, was this on the video and I missed it because I was peeing? Because we watched it after the fact. It aired live and they edited it out. No, but like when they uploaded it, where's the YouTube video? Send me the YouTube video and we'll rewatch it right now and see if the pause is there. Because we did watch CNN after, like we did watch the uploaded part, because I don't remember...
Insufficient.
I don't remember the Stephen Miller part being there when he talks about plenary authority. We did, however, watch it after the fact, and this video doesn't have it. Anyway, they reshot that whole segment for the upload. This was it. This was the video we watched.
Illinois and the city of Chicago are filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration.
No, they are.
No, guys, in my video, at 1930, I'm watching him say plenary authority, but that's after the fact. I watched the original YouTube video. I'm trying to figure out if they had it in the original YouTube video. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I worked in TV for 2 decades. If whoever was editing it saw that it was going to be called an error, I'd have cut it out without paying attention. Oh, it's at zero.
My question was whether the administration comment. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller. My question was whether the administration still plans to...
So that flash cut that they have in between, okay, that flash cut in between doesn't have it. We saw it together. You were pissing in the chat. Had you rewind? No, I watched the glitch after the fact on a separate video on Twitter. The stitching of 2 separate videos at 010 leaves out critical footage regarding plenary authority. Why did you so blatantly remove part of the interview clip at 010 of Stephen Miller saying that the president has plenary authority? Where's the part you cut out, CNN? The part where he says Trump has plenary authority. It seems like I saw this clip in a Hasan reaction channel, the video this morning. Pretty sure you were pissing. No, you did watch the glitch. I know I watched the glitch. I watched the glitch after the fact. I watched the glitch on Twitter. I did not watch the glitch on the OG YouTube video. I watched the glitch after someone said, hey, did you notice that this happened in the interview? And I looked at it and I was like, did this happen in the interview while I was pissing? What the f? It was not in the uploaded CNN video. And it's clear that it's no longer, even if it was in the uploaded CNN video when it was immediately uploaded, it's no longer in the uploaded videos. So they edited it after the fact potentially. Because you can see in my look, did you see? I think he might have had a stroke. So here.
Deployment of National Guard in Oregon, illegal insurrection. Does the administration still plan to abide by that ruling?
Well,
notice how it was a clip that someone sent. And it wasn't actually in the original YouTube video. CNN only showed that plenary part on the live reporting and it was removed for the upload. Why fixate on this? Who cares if you saw it in the original or not? We know CNN edited it out. Yes, I was just trying to see if they They kept it in on the YouTube upload as well, but then they deleted it after the fact or not. But it seems like they didn't have it in the OG YouTube re-upload of the stream, and people only got it from clipping it from the live broadcast. So they redacted it from the initial upload.
Weird noise. This was little SS Miller realizing immediately that he really, really stuck his foot in it. He said the quiet part out loud. One commentator even suggested that perhaps he had been rehearsing this argument to roll out at a later date. And I think that that might not be far off. Maybe it wasn't so much rehearsal, but it's clear that this is language that slipped out because that is how he's viewing it and how he's talking about it. They are prepared to claim complete, unlimited authority to do whatever he wants with the military. Wake up. By the way, if you wanted any confirmation of why AI overviews or tech companies are not your friends, when I went to pull up US Code Title 10, which by the way, everyone should download before they try anything sneaky.
I think the irony is that Stephen Miller basically communicates that the administration has plenary authority all the time, without using those exact words. That entire interview is him summarizing that position over and over again, but never actually using those words. So I do kind of feel as though maybe CNN is, or not CNN, but like liberals are looking at this and reading too much into it, because that is what they're doing. That is precisely what they're doing. When they like, what do we think they're doing when they say like, oh, I don't give a about the governor, and ultimately the Supreme Court will abide by our wishes as they have done so in the past. I guess the interesting part about this is like whether CNN actually cut it because it was just like dead air and a glitch, and they thought, oh, it's due to our it's due to our broadcasting issues or whatever. Or whether it's because they are like in on it and they are complicit in the administration actively behaving in a fascist way. And I don't think the dude who was like grilling Stephen Miller quite aggressively would be involved in that. I don't think it's like I don't know. I think the liberal argument is that it will be used in states' legal battles against the admin. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
It was clear people had been looking this up because the top suggested search was US Code Title 10 plenary authority. I clicked to see what people were being served up. And sure enough, in the AI overview, it says that while the US Code does not explicitly use the term plenary authority, instead it defines the authority of the president to call members and units of the National Guard into federal service to suppress rebellion, repel invasion, or execute federal laws, which is a form of broad or plenary power over military forces. And I think it's important that we understand what's happening here, because too many people are relying on these AI overviews and ChatGPT, which, by the way, you should never go to for factual answers. Plenary does not mean broad. Some people may use it that way, but it means unqualified. Absolute. And by definition, even according to this AI overview, the fact that the powers are defined and limited to specific circumstances makes them not plenary. That qualifies them. Now, can you debate exactly how broad those powers are under those specific circumstances? Sure, and they are. This is also not the only place in our legal code where these powers are defined or limited. Lastly, by the way, even if we were to just look at this statute, even if he calls the National Guard into federal service to quote unquote quell rebellion, quote, orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of these states. And guess what? Governors, while they have to follow federal law, cannot be compelled to follow a presidential order, because we have something called the anti-commandeering doctrine. It's part of that little states' rights thing. Basically, the principle is that the federal government cannot take over or commandeer a state government to use it as part of the federal government. Ojo, or oye, as it were. It's called a doctrine because this is Supreme Court interpretation of our Constitution. The idea that commandeering would violate the structure of federalism, which means, and yes, you already see where this is going, that the Supreme Court could in fact decide to walk that back. However, that still doesn't give the president plenary powers over the military. The good news, if you can call it that, is that number one,
Lawyer here, like the other chatter said, it could be important for legal cases. Usually executive overreach gets hand-waved because no officials are saying the quiet part out loud and they just blame exigent circumstances or other temporary language. Hard claiming something like plenary authority obviates those excuses. That's interesting. I mean, are they? I feel like this admin, unlike any other, does say the quiet part out loud quite frequently. You're right about exigent circumstances. That's the reason why they have to say immigrants constitute a serious threat, and the previous administration didn't actually prosecute immigrants, and then didn't actually arrest and detain and deport immigrants expeditiously, which is why we have to violate due process, stuff like that, right? Like they'll try to build a reason for it. Like they'll try to really heighten the tension, right? In this situation, I guess like he's basically saying we have absolute authority over this. We have absolute authority over like sending the National Guard. But even if he uses like plenary authority as a term instead of talking about how like they do have the absolute authority as the Supreme Court has given them this authority before, I don't know. I don't understand like what the distinction is there, you know?
This isn't surprising that this is their goal. Number two, if attorneys are made aware of this, at least they can start preparing their arguments against this language that's obviously going to start being rolled out as part of some argument or another very soon. The third bit of good news is I figured out what Stephen Miller sounds like. First, what you gotta understand is that because he's trying to come off as tough and he's a widow baby, he's in a perpetual pout when he talks like this. Number two, you gotta understand that he's a California boy, so you gotta place that pout on one of the characters from SNL's The Californians. I'm totally taller than 4'10". Oh, and the last bit of good news is I'm fairly certain he had to go change his pants after that interview.
They were just cutting dead air. Maybe I can see that. I can see that happening, to be honest. President Donald John Trump says Johnson and Pritzker should be in jail.
Breaking right now, within the past hour, President Donald Trump took to his social media platform, Truth Social.
Trump wants to investigate if Antifa dressed up like Trump supporters on January 6th. Oh my God, I love this argument.
Saying the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker should be in jail for, quote, failing to protect ICE officers. We reached out to both offices for...
Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers. Governor Pritzker also. Incredible stuff. Incredible insanity.
Comment and are waiting to hear back.
Look, he's a coward. He says a lot of things to the camera. He likes to pretend to be a tough guy. Come and get me. Come and get me. What kind of a country are we living in where the president...
Yeah. MAGA man brandishes spoils of petty theft in the White House. President promises to prosecute victim of said theft. That's a funny way to approach this, but that is kind of what happened here. Sorter, I took this flag from the man who was burning it in the street. Do you know who he is? Oh, yeah. You should prosecute him. That is literally what happened. It is quite literally legal to burn a flag. It is constitutionally protected speech. The United States of America is one of the few unique countries that allows this to happen. Okay? You might not like it, but that's tough for you. You are allowed to do it. Okay? There's a tremendous amount of precedent for this. Okay? The Supreme Court has protected it. The Supreme Court has protected it as a legal, a legally recognized form of demonstrating your First Amendment rights. Now, what is illegal, however, is to steal, technically. If we're going to get into the technicalities, it is illegal for someone to steal the flag that you are burning. That would be theft. So Andrew Egger is correct when he says, MAGA man brandishes spoils of petty theft in White House. President promises to prosecute victim of said theft. Just to be clear, SCOTUS has decided law enforcement officers have no obligation to protect the people, but the governor must protect the special widow Gestapo under threat of law. I know. That makes things a little bit more complicated, doesn't it? Trump, Truth Social, is this new? My goal is very simple. Stop crime in America. 7 times presidents have activated U.S. troops on American soil. I do like this because while he's posting about this, like, I know his ass didn't read it because every single other instance, with the exception of some, was quite literally it was being used to make sure that the violent racists cannot directly stop desegregation from happening, for example. Okay? Here it is. Desegregation of Southern. Obviously, number one is the Civil War. There was no National Guard such as during the Civil War, but when war broke out in 1861, President Abraham Lincoln activated the state militias of the Union to fight the secessionist states of the Confederacy, actively stamping out a secessionist terrorist movement, right? And then number two, desegregation of Southern schools. A landmark 1954 decision in Brown v. Board of Education declared that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional, but it took years for Southern states to enforce integration. In 1957, the integration of all-white Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, became the first true test of desegregation. MLK's march from Selma to Montgomery. In 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson clashed with Governor Wallace and federalized Alabama's National Guard troops to protect the lives of civil rights activists, including Martin Luther King Jr. Okay? The Detroit uprisings in 1967, then it gets a little trickier. Across the U.S., frustrations over systematic racism and police brutality and unemployment boiled over in the long, hot summer in 1967. There were over 160 riots in American cities that summer, but none worse than the violence and chaos that erupted in black communities of Detroit. The trouble began when Detroit police raided an unlicensed after-hours bar called a Blind Pig in the city's predominantly black near West Side. As the police made arrests, somebody threw a brick through a patrol car window. That spark ignited a powder keg of anger in the streets of Detroit that resulted in 4 days of rioting, looting, fires, and armed clashes. President Johnson federalized 8,000 Michigan National Guard troops in Detroit and authorized an additional 5,000 federal troops to quell the riots. Pillage, looting, murder, and arson have nothing to do with civil rights, Johnson said. These are criminal conduct. Number five, riots following the assassination of MLK. The murder of Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4th, 1968 was a tipping point for many black communities in America. The same anger and frustration that ignited the long, hot summer of 67 exploded again in 68 with the shocking news of MLK's death. Cuban refugee crisis in 1980. The National Guard is airborne wing of the Air National Guard is the airborne wing of the National Guard. But there isn't an equivalent for the sea. Instead, the state or federal governments need additional help with an ocean emergency. They call on the U.S. Coastal Guard Reserve. In 1980, President Jimmy Carter activated the USCGR in response to an unprecedented refugee crisis out of Cuba. By 1980, many Cubans had grown frustrated with life in communist Cuba. They suffered economically under American economic sanctions and culturally under the repressive rule of Fidel Castro. For decades, it was impossible to leave Cuba legally, but that changed on May 1st, 1980. When a fed up Castro declared that the door was open, those who have no revolutionary genes, those who have no revolutionary blood, we do not want them, we do not need them, Castro said. Any Cuban who wanted to leave was directed to the port of Mariel, the closest port to the United States. For the next 6 months, they could leave legally. President Carter famously welcomed Cuban exiles with open arms, expecting maybe 5,000 arrivals over the next 5 months. However, more than 125,000 Cuban refugees fled to the U.S. as a part of the historic Mariel boat lift. And the U.S. Coast Guard, accustomed to policing boat traffic from Cuba, switched to a search and rescue role, assisting the more than 5,000 boats ferrying Cuban refugees to Florida. 1992 LA riots. Obviously, you had the Rodney King, the police officers in Los Angeles Police Department beating unarmed black motorist Rodney King on the side of the road. The real shock came a year later when all 4 LAPD officers were acquitted. As news spread of the not guilty verdict, black neighborhoods across South and Central Los Angeles exploded in anger. And this, like with the exception of the last couple here, like historically, the deployment of the National Guard has either happened when there is like unprecedented amounts of conflict, okay? Unprecedented amounts of conflict when there is like there's obviously tremendous discontent for valid reasons. And then people obviously protest, and those protests actually get out of control. Meanwhile, or in the past when like the National Guard was ever like federalized or deployed, it has oftentimes been deployed to in civil proceedings, right? In proceedings that don't require like the heavy-handed government intervention. It's usually civil rights or civil liberties related. Okay. Now there are some other instances where they've like that they've not mentioned because it's not just 7 times that U.S. presidents activated U.S. troops on American soil. But what's unique about this particular instance is that the Trump administration, and you're talking about governors deploying the National Guard of their individual states. That's different. Governors have deployed National Guards. That's not the case here. This is not the governor deploying the National Guard. This is the president not abiding by the wishes of the governor in deploying the National Guard. Okay? So if you have the governor that says, we don't actually want the National Guard to be deployed right now. We're fine. We can actually deal with this with our local law enforcement. And the federal government says, nope, we're stepping in. And we are, as the federal government, we are federalizing the National Guard. That is an important distinction. Okay? But it has never happened. It has never happened in a moment where it's never happened in a moment where there's like no discontent whatsoever or marginal discontent, right? The notion that like Portland is on fire and this requires the administration to take this like unprecedented action. Question, there's compelling proof that Antifa did infiltrate on January 6th dressed up like Trump supporters and incited violence. Is that something you'd like the new J6 committee to look at? Trump, well, I've heard that. Yeah, we will be acting on some of that. That's incredible. Incredible.
In the back, please.
It's been actually very compelling proof that Antifa did infiltrate on January 6th, dressed up like Trump supporters and incited violence. Is that something that you would want the new J6 committee at Congress to look into?
Well, I've heard that. They dress up like, they're fresh out of MAGA, but they have nothing to do with MAGA. And they make trouble and they try and blame it. And yeah, we know some of that and we will be acting on some of that. We've seen it. So I think you could stay a little longer, but the problem is, although you have some very honest journalists in here, you also have some largely dishonest journalists like MSDNC and CNN.
So this never really made sense to me because like I thought January 6th was good. So this narrative never actually made sense. Is Antifa totally good and totally legal? Like that actually, like, does that mean you pardoned Antifa members? Does that mean that the FBI, which is also supposed to be like defending Antifa, for example, the FBI that's supposed to be defending Antifa actually unironically was prosecuting Antifa, and then you as the brave, beautiful, bold president ended up you ended up pardoning Antifa? Like, how does that work? It just doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. But here's Governor Pritzker. Big boy Pritzker says Pritzker hits back after Trump says he should be jailed. He says, come and get me.
The President of the United States is targeting his political opponents. I mean, that is the world that we're living in now, where he is calling out. He said he was going to jail Gavin Newsom. He says he's going to jail me. He says he's going to jail the mayor of the city of Chicago. These are people who stand against him, disagree with him, speak out about it, but literally have done nothing wrong.
Catch the latest on this story at...
I want to go to Illinois now, where the governor is standing by with Jacob Soboroff, a governor who has been fighting against having federal troops come into his cities and the environs, and as a result has heard it said by the President of the United States that he should be jailed. Jacob, let me throw it over to you and the governor.
Chris, thank you so much. Governor J.B. Pritzker, thanks for joining us live on MSNBC.
How are you, Jake? We're good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. You know as well as I do, the President of the United States in the last 24 hours called for you to be imprisoned. I want to give you an opportunity. We've seen your reaction on social media, but I want to hear what you have to say back to the President of the United States.
Well, let's start with the idea that this is a convicted felon. I mean, think about that, who is threatening to jail me. I got to say, this guy's unhinged. He's insecure. He's a wannabe dictator. And there's one thing I really want to say to Donald Trump. If you come for my people, you come through me. So come and get me.
He has the perfect size and stature for this. Like, as a big boy, I will say he has the perfect size and perfect stature for putting up the tough guy approach. Real heavyweight bout. The great Khan of the Midwest. Yep.
What does that mean exactly, Governor? Do you believe that he would follow through or that he'll chicken out? He basically said the same thing to Governor Gavin Newsom when I was with him at the height of the raids in the Los Angeles area. Governor Gavin Newsom is walking free on the streets of California. You think that he'll chicken out, or would he ever arrest you?
Well, you know the expression, Trump always chickens out, taco. And I got to say, he can't arrest. We've done nothing wrong here. And very importantly, it's Donald Trump that is breaching the Constitution, breaking the law. We're taking him to court, and I believe we're going to win.
Right now, in the Chicagoland area, the Texas National Guard is staging for a deployment that Governor Greg Abbott has ordered. What's the latest? Do you know where they are, what they're doing at this hour?
Well, to be clear, Donald Trump ordered it and federalized those troops, and Greg Abbott's just going along. This is the same guy, by the way, Greg Abbott, who last year complained when Joe Biden tried to call up his National Guard and actually wrote a letter, signed a letter, opposing that. Now he's okay with it because why? He's a lackey of Donald Trump. So we know that the Texas National Guard has been staging in Illinois. They're not yet, as far as I understand, on the streets, but I want you to know, the federal government is not communicating with our state.
They're not talking to you about where these troops are going.
It's unconscionable. This has never happened before. They're calling out troops onto the streets of a state that doesn't want them, and they're not even telling us where they're going to go, what they're going to do. This hasn't happened, I don't think, since the Civil War.
Let me ask you about the lawsuit. You have sued to stop their deployment. You didn't sue to stop National Guard on a nationwide level. You sued to, correct me if I'm wrong, just the Texas National Guard.
Actually, no. We sued to stop him from calling out the Illinois National Guard, the Texas National Guard.
You once said you didn't care that felons are allowed to run for office because it's not like they're going to make crime legal. I'm wondering whether you would retract your statement or you think this is just a Trump issue. Yes. And also, it's not like I'm not retracting that statement. Okay. Trump is not making crime legal because he's a felon. Trump is making crime legal because he's a fascist.
And all other National Guards, because it is unconstitutional.
On the streets, even before the National Guard has made it to the streets of Illinois, you've got the Border Patrol. I was in Cicero yesterday, a 90% Latino population, and I watched as they not only pick people off the streets, but family members would come up to me and ask me where their family members were. I watched you with Rachel the other night here on MSNBC, and you were talking about how CBP has basically used the justification of the 100-mile border rule to allow the deployment here, and they're saying the border of Lake Michigan, the coast of Lake Michigan is the border. Lake Michigan, many people reached out to me and said, Lake Michigan doesn't even touch Canada. Are you thinking about suing to stop the deployment of the Border Patrol here as well?
Look, I think it's important to recognize that the Trump administration doesn't seem to respect any laws in the United States. They just do what they want to do, and they'll keep doing it unless someone stops them. Here in Illinois, we're stopping it. We're doing everything that we can to push back. And yeah, they've got armed, we're talking about automatic weapons and camouflaged, and they're not soldiers, right? These are ICE and Customs and Border Patrol agents that are roaming the streets of Chicago, in downtown Chicago. Why? It's a show. It's a show of force. And why does Donald Trump want to do that? And I've said this before, and I think it's important for people to hear it. He wants to militarize major cities across the United States, especially blue cities in blue states, because he wants us to get used to the idea of military on the streets, military troops, because of their 2026 elections. I believe that he's going to post people outside of ballot boxes and polling places, and if he needs to, in order to control those elections, he'll assume control of the ballot boxes and count the votes himself. He promised to do that. He threatened to do that back in 2020. Didn't get the chance to do it. I believe he would do it in 2026.
Do you believe we'll have free and fair elections in the United States of America during the 2026 midterms?
If we all stand up and speak out, we sure as heck will. And you see there are literally hundreds of people here who are standing up to speak out, and we've seen in the No Kings protests and others, millions of people standing up. We need more.
I asked you when I saw you the other day about if the president invokes the Insurrection Act. You said you use every tool at your disposal to stop the deployment of federal troops on the streets of Chicago and throughout your state. Are you willing to direct the state police to arrest any federal officials for what they're doing here?
Look, we don't break the law here in Illinois. I'm not going to direct our state police to break the law the way that Donald Trump directs people to break the law. What we will do is fight like heck in the courts. We have to rely upon judges. And by the way, a Trump-appointed judge made the decision decision on Oregon and the calling out of the California National Guard. Judges will and can do the right thing. We have to rely upon our courts. I'm not looking beyond that.
It's definitely interesting how you navigate this drama slob aimed at you, but can you keep ignoring this machine that keeps churning out all the shite all the time and hate? Yes, I can. Because there are more pressing matters. There are more pressing matters, more consequential things happening that impact the lives of millions of people. So what can you do other than keep it pushing? People will get invested in silly things, and they will do everything they can to continue investing in silly things. It is what it is. There's a lot of drama for there is a lot of interest in taking out someone like myself. Phil put this thing as the top story before the Chicago invasion. People got their priorities straight. Exactly. What are you gonna do? I don't know. Maybe I'm not normal. Maybe I'm not normal for being used to it. I don't think anyone should be used to it. But it is what it is.
We have to make sure that happens. But the other thing we have to make sure that happens is we elect good people to the Congress. Because in the end, if Congress is not asking questions, holding hearings, and holding the president accountable, he will just run roughshod across our states.
What's your message, final question, to the people here of the state of Illinois, the people of the city of Chicago, as this incursion by the federal government, these troops are on the streets of your state, of this city. What do you want them to do? There's a big protest scheduled for 5:30 p.m. tonight.
Well, first, we've made sure that people know their rights and they know how to find out what their rights are, because we don't want them picked up off the streets just because they're brown or black, just because they happen to be undocumented and have committed no crimes. Remember, he said he was going after the worst of the worst. It's not going after the worst of the worst when you're just literally stopping children who happen to be brown and asking them for papers as if, you know, they're going to have proof that they're a U.S. citizen. So first, know your rights. Second, we want everybody to pull out their phones, an Android, an iPhone, whatever you've got, and film everything you see, because we take that to court. We also show it to the public. And it's one of the reasons that so many people are speaking up and acting up in order to fight Donald Trump, because they're seeing this is not the country that we grew up in. This is not the country that we want. And so that's very important. And then lastly, again, we got to take them to court. We got to win. It looks like we're going to do that.
For someone who has been threatened with arrest by the President of the United States in the last 24 hours, it's nice to see you out here on the street with all these people, and I'm grateful for your time.
Appreciate you,
want to talk to you. Okay,
Good to
thank
see
you. Governor J.B. Pritzker, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chris, the governor of the great state of Illinois, obviously a lot of people want to speak to him out here. This is a critical, crucial moment in this battle with the federal government over the deployment of not only troops, but these masked and armed federal agents here on the streets of Illinois. And I'm going to throw it back to you.
Well, if I can, Jacob, I want to ask you about a couple things. In our last hour, we talked about a couple of examples of things that had happened in Chicago. Well, multiple ones, but I'm thinking particularly about the Chicago Tribune photo. Somebody's videoing, which the governor just said, take videos, right? And has a weapon aimed at them. The Chicago Tribune has that picture. And then the clergyman, who it was reported, was praying, hands raised, eyes closed, and was shot multiple times with pepper bullets.
That was a crazy photo, dude. That was a crazy video and a crazy photo. Straight up. Real villain shit. Does anyone have the photo? I feel like this photo of masked armed men pepper spraying a pastor protecting his community is going to be a defining picture of this moment in America for a long, long time. Like, what do you do? What do you do in that situation? The video of this incident is just as bad as it sounds. The priest is standing there, not doing anything remotely illegal, and without warning, a masked DHS agent on the roof shoots him on the top of the head with a pepper ball. Yeah, there's a Hamas pastor. Yeah, the pastor is Hamas. I mean, it's like this cute, man. I think people don't understand. I think people don't recognize that, like, that is, you could kill someone like that. You could take an eye out. You know what I mean? You could just, like, those things are not supposed to be direct impact. Like, all these munitions are supposed to be like shot in the vicinity. You're not supposed to be shooting it from an elevated position like this. Like, they have less than lethal munitions have actively killed people before. Yeah, every second of every day we move closer and closer to the reality that Republicans would arrest Jesus Christ if he came back to life. Okay? Republicans would arrest Jesus Christ. Like, they'd be like, you're brown, you're a migrant, Jesus, get the hell out of here. They keep shooting at the people that are trying to render aid to the priest that's on the ground. Calling protesters and Christian shooters anti-Christian while attacking praying priests.